Hello, this is Heather Hoffman, and for this week's edition of Wednesday in the Works, I've got a fun floral butterfly card that I'm going to put together. I'm using just the largest butterfly die from Butterfly Dreams, and as you can see, I've already cut a panel of white cardstock and I've die cut that out. I'm not going to use the coordinating stamps for this card. I'm going to use my Misty to line up my stamp image with my floral image that I'm going to use from Hatbox Florals, which is a recent release. I'm going to stamp that over the sides of the wings. Now, originally when I started making this card, my plan was just to stamp the flowers on there and use it as an embellishment on the butterfly and just adhere that to the front of the card. My plan changed a little bit, as you saw in the finished card. So I'll carry on here. I went ahead, make sure and clean that floral stamp really well in between, because when you line it up on the Misty, if it's not clean, you'll get a smudge mark, and I didn't want that, so I sped that up in between, but I can clean that image really thoroughly. Now, as you can see, that was my original plan, and as I started getting to this point, I realized it kind of looked a little neat with that whole floral image on there and having it show. So I decided to do, just kind of on a whim here, to spotlight color in the parts of the florals that are up on the butterfly, just to kind of help make it pop, so that when I adhered the whole thing onto the card, I could pop that up with foam adhesive. I'm using very simple Copic, actually only two Copic marker colors, YG03, which is the soft green that I used on the leaves, and B21 is what I used on the flowers, which coordinates really well with my mist cardstock that I used for my card base. So I adhered the negative die cut directly on the card front, and I was gonna just kind of pop it up in the middle with foam adhesive, and then I decided to put the foam a little bit on each side so it popped it up more solidly across the whole thing. I still use my fingers to kind of curl up the edges a bit more, just to give it a little bit more dimension. It's just kind of a fun way to add a little more detail. Now I'm going to add a stamped sentiment on the bottom. This comes from a stamp set called Tall Blooms. It's got some beautiful mixes of fonts, and I really love that birthday sentiment. And since birthday cards are always something I never seem to be able to have enough on hand, I frequently like to use a good birthday sentiment. So now that I have that on there, I'm going to wrap a little bit of twine around the front and tie it in just kind of a loose, whimsical bow. And I also I don't think I showed on this video, but when I finish tying a bow, I generally, once I've got it and I'm happy with it and I trim my ends off, I generally put a little tiny dot of liquid adhesive right behind the bow. Once that dries, not only does it hold the bow in place, it helps keep the bow from coming untied, which is kind of nice that once your recipient gets it, it won't come untied and fall apart. You know, it'll stay nice and sturdy there. So that's kind of a good trick to keep a bow in place. Now, as a final finishing touch to help that butterfly pop a little bit more, I covered the entire surface of just the blue colored flowers up on the butterfly with some clear, sparkly Nouveau glitter drops. This color is Blizzard. It's just a clear glitter drop that has lots of pretty sparkle. And I recommend doing this part first if you're doing it. It was kind of hard to not smudge that glitter glue, which hadn't dried yet. So if I was doing it again, this was just kind of an afterthought that it felt like it just needed one little touch more sparkle. So I added some white jewels along the center of the butterfly and adhered those in place. And there we have the finished card with lots of sparkle from the glitter glue, the bling down the middle, and nice, soft, pretty color scheme. Thanks so much for coming by today. I hope you enjoyed, and have a wonderful day.